Oh. Welcome, everyone. As you log in tonight, feel free to use the chat. Let us know where you're logging into. Couple shout out to, we have some CSULB students joining us tonight, I know. Say hello. And we'll give it just about one more minute before we get started. Hi, Jamie. Hi. All right, so since we have people trickling in, I just want to say good evening and welcome. My name's Allison Heaney, and I'm the Vice President of Learning and Public Programming here at the Museum of Latin American Art. My pronouns are she, her, and I recognize that I live and work on the traditional and sacred lands of the Tongva, Kish, Ashiman, and Shumas, and many other indigenous groups who call these grounds home. I honor and extend my gratitude to all the original people still living in this region. Thank you for joining us today, Wednesday, November 16th, as we begin this new session of G.R.I.T, Generating Radical Inclusion and Transformation. This series explores how grit, an attribute often given to people who overcome obstacles, can serve as a tool for building agency. With specific focus on creative expression, G.R.I.T seeks to expand what it means to practice art for social change. Support for the interpretive programming at MOLA is provided by the Genesis Inspiration Foundation from Hyundai Motor America, the Miller Foundation, Dwight Stewart Youth Fund, Arts Council for Long Beach, and the Robert Gumbiner Foundation and the City of Long Beach. Today's conversation is facilitated and hosted by Grisela Suarez. She's a writer, artist, cook, and teacher. She was born in unincorporated East Los Angeles and walked Whittier Boulevard and Brooklyn Ave in black and white saddle shoes. She grew up in a place where her thoughts did not easily find voice. Instead, she found a pen and paper. Her hometown inspires her to investigate memories of a home space that continues to be bodiless. She believes that arts are essential in empowering others to express their thought. And throughout her career, she's created programming and training dedicated to facilitating transformation and creating agency for communities. And today's guest, Tracy Colunga, joined the Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation after a 16-year career in city government. Tracy serves as a Civic Engagement Practice Director and works to expand the already bustling civic engagement practice through initiatives like Cities of Service and programs like Love Your Block. She will also be focused on helping advance and credentialize the field of civic engagement as a core tool for government innovation. Most recently, she served as the Chief Innovative Officer at the City of Long Beach, California. She's focused on policies and projects that advocate for Black, Brown, Asian Pacific Islander justice involved and people of color. Under Tracy's leadership, the Office of Civic Innovation worked closely with the Long Beach Police Department to understand trends and patterns of people cycling in and out of the justice system. The City of Long Beach launched the Long Beach Justice Lab to strategically break the cycle of incarceration. She and her team led the development of language access policy, African American Cultural Center, Latino Cultural Center, Safe Long Beach Violence Prevention Plan, My Brother's Keeper, and Airport Customer Experience. She's focused her career around community engagement. As the granddaughter of migrant farm workers, Tracy is a first-generation college graduate and holds a master's degree from the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs and a bachelor's degree from St. Mary's College, Notre Dame. Tracy is currently a lecturer at Cal State Long Beach School of Social Work. I see some students on there. She also serves the board of the director for UCLA and serves as a lecturer there for 5 years, received the UCLA Joe Noon Alumni Award in 2011. Tracy is married to her husband, Hutch, of 18 years, who is a teacher and advocate for young people in the local community. They have 2 children, Lupe, a graduate student, and Quetzal, a high school aspiring filmmaker. As we begin our program, please remember to drop any questions in the Q&A window or the chat function at the bottom of your screen. I'll be monitoring the time and responding to questions throughout the conversation. We'll, of course, leave some time for Q&A at the end. So with that, I'd love to hand it off to Griselda and Tracy. Thank you both for being here. We're so excited.
Thank you so much. Really always appreciative of you, Allison and Solimar for helping us with this, and Mola for hosting this kind of program. Much appreciated. Welcome everyone. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Tracy, I think you and I have crossed paths many times, not knowing that we were in the same room and of same spirit. And we're now here. We're now here. We're both lecturers at Long Beach State. I can't believe we didn't know each other through that. We both have done community work. And again, who knows how many times we might have crossed paths. But I think there were two things when we finally had a conversation, and when you came up to me, I think it was like in 2018, you said something, and I had always wanted to have a conversation with Tracy. I hear all this great work, and I was like, I need to have a conversation with Tracy. And you came up, and I was wearing a gaban. I was wearing one of my grandmother's gabans, and you complimented it, and not a lot of people do, even though it's beautiful, right? So I was like, oh, I think Tracy knows what's up, it was beautiful. And then we also had this other connection because we were talking about identity, right? And I know that I have I have familial connection when I can dive deep quickly with some hermanas, right? Let's just dive deep. And we both are Chicana with an X. And we know what that means to us immediately. And so I'm so glad we get to have this conversation with the community that has joined us tonight. And I especially am glad that we can talk about how we both value community and see that transformation from different lenses, but we're really sometimes talking the same language. Right. And so welcome, bienvenida. Thank you for being here. For everyone who's joining us for the first time, G.R.I.T came out of a lot of my own practice and in talking with community and learning from community members the amount of work it takes to get ourselves to a meeting, to a public space, to share voice and see what that looks like for the entire group of people in that room. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the studies that came out maybe 15 years ago about grit and what, people who have grit and what that looks like. And when I first heard it, I was like, you're talking about a very specific person. And oftentimes the examples were first generation college students having the grit to get through, which is great. We had some studies there, but I think beyond that, it takes people taking the step to include as many voices to really look at true transformation. And I see your work in that, Tracy. I see you as one of those people that takes that step. So, bienvenida. How are you doing?
Thank you, Griselda, and thank you, Mola, for hosting me. I'm doing good. I'm beaming in from Guatemala City, Guatemala, which is wild. All you know, I live in Long Beach, California. That's where my heart lives. But I'm beaming in from Guatemala today.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're still joining us, even though you're broadcasting from down south, and appreciate your time. So tonight is very much about your story. And so I do have questions. Sometimes we follow them because we need another question to move along. But sometimes the stories will take us to where we need to hear the heart, right? So I'm going to begin with asking you to share something that's really important in a creative life, but in any community engagement as well, is how did you cultivate your voice? Where does that come from? Who were the people or the incident, the moment? Where did that come from for you?
Thank you, Griselda. And I want to take a moment to thank you for inviting me, because you're the one that originally reached out to me to invite me. And as you were saying earlier, I feel the same way about you, that it's like we had immediate understanding. Like we saw each other, like, I see you. Okay, we're on the same page. Okay, let's move the work together. So I want to thank you for that, and interweave some of the places that we've collaborated on projects in Long Beach, and I have a feeling we'll be collaborating on projects in the world soon. So my voice, really to be authentic, as we mentioned in my bio, I worked for the city of Long Beach for 16 years. Prior to that, I worked for LA County and a member of Congress. All that to say that early in my career, I was really embarrassed to share with people that I was a first-generation college graduate, or that I was a single mom who was on food stamps and welfare. And I put myself through school with my bachelor's and master's as a single mom. And I kept it a secret for many years because I felt like I didn't want my colleagues to judge me, that I was just as intelligent. I came from the best schools in the country, just like they did. And I wanted to bring 100. And everything I've done over the years has been with 100% commitment, dedication, love, passion. But something turned, midway through my career, where I realized telling my story could help heal people, and actually could help people see not only parts of our community in a different light, but also empower them. So, I want to share a story with you. Last 2 weeks ago, I was in Baltimore, and we hosted cities from all over the country who have Love Your Block funding from Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation. And to make a really long story short, we had about 35 people there from 8 cities. One in particular, a young woman from Erie, Pennsylvania, a Latina, the only Latina on the team. And the Love Your Block program they're running in Erie is in their predominantly Latino neighborhood. So who would think Pennsylvania, Latinos? By the way, I'm from Indiana. My family is from Oklahoma. I know that this is Griselda taught me this, we're part of the diaspora of Latinos all over this country and all over the world. So I wasn't surprised that she was from Erie, but I was surprised to know she was the only Latina. So she kind of shared some things in the general session, but later that evening, after dinner, she and I had a possibility to talk one-on-one. And she kind of shared with me about being the only Latina on the team, being one of few Latinas in City Hall. And I got to share with her my story of being the first Latina Chief Innovation Officer in the country. And oftentimes I'd go to conferences and I'd be the only Latina. When I first joined the management team in the city of Long Beach, I was one of few Latinos. Over the years, we started hiring Mayor Garcia and Chief Luna and other leaders, intentionally hired Latinos and Latinas in seats of power and decision-making, but I was one of the first. And I really got to share my story with her and tell her to keep going, and that she had a place in City Hall, and that she will help bring in other Latinos to work in City Hall to advocate for her community. And I felt like in that moment, those 20 years of me carrying my story quietly, like came to full circle, where now I feel even more authentically to share who I am and where I've come from, so that other young Latinos and Latinas can push past breaking points to break into leadership positions.
Well, thank you for sharing, Tracy. It is those moments where sometimes we see ourselves in the next generation of leaders. And I know, right? Like I can just already know some thoughts that maybe this young woman had in her mind. When do I say it? How do I say it? Do I say it? Will they hear it? What do they hear in my voice? Will they hear an accent? What kind of words should I use? Should I code switch? Like all of those questions, right?
Yes, exactly. She asked me all of those. Should I wear my hair in a bun? Should I wear it down? I don't want to wear clothes that seem too like Chicana Latina, like all of those questions. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Things that maybe we went through by ourselves. Right. And so we can say, well, this is what I did, or this is my suggestion. Absolutely. Wow. That's it is, there's a lot of emotion there for various reasons. The tension in taking us back to that moment when we went through it, but also the joy to see someone her age within this group doing this kind of work. So when you think about your voice, and you talked about it in a professional setting, right? So you started here and then here, and how your voice in some ways was uplifted by others, or there was an intention, right, to bring your voice in. How did it work within, while you were growing up? How did little Tracy voice herself?
Yeah, that is such a good question. So I'll be honest, my mom is a strong Latina. She is boss lady numero uno. I remember at my grad school graduation, this is hilarious. We laugh about this today. At my grad school graduation, I was at we had a Latino graduation at UCLA, all 10 of us, 8 of us, whatever it was. We all were together, in our graduation. And I remember I said, my mom taught me, don't take no crap from no man. And I said that in my graduation, but I tell that story like funny, but also she raised us girls in the house to be strong. So my mom was a single mom of 4 kids, 3 girls and 1 boy. My mom is a strong, opinionated woman. And what's interesting is she will not stand down from anybody if they try to punk her or make her feel less than, because she is a hardworking woman. She earned every penny she's had. She raised us 4 children in the hood. She did the best she could. She's just a strong mujer. And so what's interesting, and I tell her this, I go, Mom, you realize that I can go into business meetings with men and I'm not afraid because of you. Because early in life, you taught us to be strong, to have an opinion, and to not get bullied or pushed around by anybody, verbally or physically, of course, but verbally. And so I would say early on, a lot of that was my mom's alpha female tendencies. Like, she trained us girls in the house to be strong. And, when she finally did marry, I mean, she made it very clear to my stepdad, who I love, of who was in charge of the house. And he could take it or leave it. And he took it because he knew if he wanted this type of strong woman, then he was going to have to let her run things. And so I say that with all love, because I remember being in high school and I was one of few Latinas in honors classes. And I raised my hand. I spoke my mind. In undergrad, I spoke up in class. And yeah, maybe there were times that I felt embarrassed. Am I going to ask the wrong question? Am I going to say the wrong thing? But my confidence, whether it was good or bad, was so strong that I would ask questions. Undergrad, I went to an all-women's Catholic school, which, by the way, was the best thing could have ever done for me because I was a little wild in high school. So it kind of like helped me get my act together. And just being a woman in all women's school really just helped like drive my intention about women leadership. But then when I went to UCLA, surprisingly enough, and again, this was 20 years ago, I was one of few women, grad school women in the classroom that would raise my hand, ask questions. I would argue with my male counterparts. They were my friends, but I wasn't afraid to have a strong debate with them. And so for some of us, it's a natural tendency. As I've worked with really strong Latinas over the years, like younger Latinas, I'm like, ooh, she's going to be a good manager someday. So, because some of us are just built this way. And so what I've been trying to think through is, how do I coach and train young, strong Latinas to not be afraid to ask hard questions, to have those conversations, because they are built for management. And for men as well, right? My husband and I talk about this, the yin and yang, or the complementary relationship. I am a feminista. I am a hardcore feminist, and so is my husband. But I don't disrespect him. I never make him look bad. I never talk bad about him. So that's a part of this leadership, right? Is like men giving space to women to lead strongly, which I believe Chief Luna and now County Sheriff Luna and Mayor Robert Garcia, who's now a member of Congress, they gave me space to have an opinion, to guide some of our city processes and programs. They gave me a lot of bandwidth to really help guide the city. But on the same respect, we women have to also give respect to the men. So there may be things like Chief Luna, I'm one of his biggest cheerleaders, right behind his wife. He is an amazing man with integrity, morals, and commitment. And there would be things that would happen in community meetings that I'm like, oh, I think you should say that. But I would, in public, I would just smile. I would high five him. I would congratulate him. But behind closed doors, I would say, Chief Luna, next time we're in a community meeting, I don't think you should take that question. I think you should pivot that question to me, because it's about youth development, high school graduation rates, these workforce development, or one of our colleagues on the city team, so that you don't have to take the brunt end of things. That's just one example, but I would quietly behind closed doors have these conversations, and then we go back out to communities, boom, we're in sync. So that's part of like the knowing your voice, is also knowing not to cancel people publicly. Because if you're really want to create community change, then behind closed doors is the best way to confront the unconfrontable and say, let's do it different next time. And I really believe that strategy, as a strong Latina, I didn't take crap from a man, but I also knew not to diss them in public, and to quietly behind the scenes say, hey, next time we're out in public, let's work as a team. And it would work. It worked. And the same thing for strong women, right? I've worked with strong women, and we have to have our strategy, our in and out strategy, so that we can complement each other and not overstep each other.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I think strategizing is important, or other people have said it, calculating, right? Like you're very calculating. It's an important part of code switching, survival, figuring out how it all works. So I appreciate you sharing that skill, right? It's a skill. It's definitely a skill you build. And so everyone who's with us tonight, feel free to use the chat, comment, ask questions. I know there's a Q&A option as well. We'll be doing Q&A at the end, just a little reminder. And so you've mentioned a little bit of what your work is, and how some congressman, it's pretty cool. Congressman Garcia right now helped uplift. Tell us more about that, because is that innovative? Right. I have to be real with you, Tracy. When I first heard about this innovation thing, I was like, what are they talking about? I don't understand. It seems so abstract. But was uplifting people into certain positions and giving them room to be who they were and figuring it out, was that part of innovation?
Yes, absolutely. One thing that I'll say under Mayor Garcia, and it's interesting because now, I've now that I work for Bloomberg, it's been about 7 months, maybe 9. Oh my gosh, who's counting? I'm able to reflect back on the last 16 years. And when I first came to the city, it was a predominantly white city council, predominantly white city department heads, right? And I was kind of low on the totem pole, but I paid attention to who was leading our city. And over the years, as Mayor Garcia got voted into, well, first he was a council member, vice mayor, and then he was voted mayor. Over his tenure, I saw him strategically bring in like Chief Luna, first Latino chief of police. He was, came up through the ranks, 30 years, deputy Chief Luna. Fire Chief Javier Espino. Now remember, the city of Long Beach is 44% Latino, 12% African-American, 14% Asian Pacific Islander. So I am not dissing any group, and we will get to the work that we've done. And, it's even with Griselda on the African-American Cultural Center, and uplifting the voices of our Black community and our Black council members is also very important to me. So I want to make sure people know that, but I am a Latina, and that is my experience. So seeing Mayor Garcia put in Javier Espino, our chief of fire, our former HR director, Alex Vasquez, a Latina in place, Reggie Harrison, our disaster prep director, he's African-American. We had Kevin Jackson, who was the deputy city manager, African-American, when we led the African-American Cultural Center. Glenda Williams, African-American Library Director. I could just go on, but under Mayor Garcia's leadership, I saw him consistently elevate the voices of people who hadn't been represented in City Hall, as well as those managers. So I was one of them, first Latina Chief Innovation Officer for the City of Long Beach, and in the entire country, out of 80 I-teams, I was the only Latina CIO. And I also became intentional about bringing up young Latino, African-American, Asian Pacific Islander, and Caucasian professionals under my wing through the I-team and our management assistant program. And so, yes, I will say that it's innovative. However, I'm laughing because one of the innovation strategies is we talk about like the different programs that I ran for the city. One of the strategies that was very innovative is called user-centered design. Now in social work, we call that the right of the client to self-determination. So it's centering the community's voice in decision-making, right? So when we developed the African American Cultural Center, we did an in-depth 12-month project that got the voices of the community to tell us, what would you like to see in the African American Cultural Center? We did the same for Safe Long Beach, our violence prevention plan. We had over 2,000 people participate, our language access policy. And so what's interesting is it's a very, I'm going to say, wise old model of like going back to the community and saying, how can we develop this policy or project with you in mind? But the old has become new, and now it's innovation, and it's called user-centered design. So I'm kind of like, I'm laughing in a good way because there's innovation in bringing the voices of others who haven't been heard at the place of leadership, but there's also innovation in centering the voices of our community so they actually have a say in how we both create and deliver policy and programs for a city.
That is, I would say, transformative, right? It is transformative. And for me, as someone who works in the community, I'm executive director of the Arts Council for Long Beach, and I'm on one of the outer circles of the city, right? We're related, we're not related, we're partners, and you see that from your point of view, the city has taken on this strategy, this innovation. We know that a lot of our people in community grassroots organizing have been doing this for some time. And so it's interesting to me to see it as a strategy within a municipality. And I have seen the increase of more community engagement events, meetings, efforts, surveys. So, it's you're kind of putting the pieces together for me in that sense. And when having a majority people of color city, those meetings add up, those events add up, those surveys add up. And I know that. So is Long Beach continuing? Will it forever continue to be an innovation city? You've moved on. Is the city of Long Beach still implementing some of these strategies? Is this forever?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm proud to say, and again, I'm embarrassed to say what I'm about to say, but I feel like it's important to know, like, over the last 16 years of my career, I have hired probably over 30 young people into the city through grant programs when I was in community development, in the health department, in the city manager's office, running the innovation team, the management assistant program. If I go back and look like at my Facebook over the years of all the young people that have come in to work in the city, specifically because I was on their interview panel or I was the manager that said yes. What's so exciting for that? And again, I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I hired 30 people. No, what it is as I get older and wiser, that legacy is there. We as a city intentionally hired Black, Brown, Cambodian, Asian Pacific Islander, young people to come in the city, and we train them on how to innovate. We train them on user-centered design, data analytics. And so we have some amazing, and I say young people because I'm older than them, but we have some amazing young people that are carrying the legacy of innovation. They're carrying the legacy of civic engagement. You know, I think of people like Estefania Zavala, Rebecca Kuma, who runs our digital inclusion work, Ryan Kurtzman, who runs our work around smart cities, Christian Castro works in our housing authority. We have so many young, I mean, I could just go down the list of young people that we brought into this. We as a team, I didn't do it myself, but we as a team brought in so many young people, and we trained them on how to innovate and how to think differently. Now, they were already innovators. Let's be real. Before they got here, to even be attracted to the city to come, they were already innovators. But then watching them, you know, really grow. Alma Castro, who's now a manager in Parks and Rec, Harrison Wynn started with us. Now he's in the port. Alex Chavez now works for Amazon. He grew up on the west side of Long Beach. He was our first data scientist. Nishal Chaudhry. I could just go on and on, the young people that I've watched grow up in this organization in the city. And it's such a beautiful thing. So the answer is yes. And in a way, I'm glad that it's not like, oh, Tracy Colunga, the chief innovation officer, is gone, the city can no longer innovate. No, we have Mayor Garcia left a legacy. Leah Erickson, our technology innovation director, is still committed to making sure innovation is a part of everything we do. We have leaders at the helm. And now that we have our new mayor has been announced, he also is an innovator himself. And so I believe we got to be a part, we witnessed over a decade of innovation that now is going to spring forth into like a new era of what I'm going to say, the millennials and the Gen Zs taking over the city, which I think is awesome.
Right, here we go. Nice. So like cultivation is innovation. I'm going to take that.
Yes. Oh,
yes.
I'm going to quote you on that. I like that.
Quote me on it.
I like that.
Quote me on it.
Cultivation is innovation. Yes. Yes.
And, you know, that is one of the words at the Arts Council, right? We cultivate creative people. And I'm interested to learn, you know, we're here with Mola tonight. I'm with the Arts Council. I see you at a lot of cultural events actually as well. Can you find a way to show or, you know, share stories of how arts and culture intersects with your work?
Absolutely. Well, I want to shout out to my husband, Hutch, because he is the arts and music guy in our home. If you ever come to my house, which you're welcome to, sometimes I host events like we did for the Rising Scholars. We did a big fundraiser for them a couple of years ago. And so who knows, you might get invited to come on through, and then you'll get to see that art is a big part of our home. And then because of my husband, I love art too, but he is like, it is his thing. And then music also in our home. And so, you know, early in my career in community organizing and community events, I realized the importance of including the arts, murals, painting, music, dancing, right? All different kinds of arts in cultural programming. When I worked at Martin Luther King Park, that was one of my first jobs at the city for 5 years, and everything we did, right? We incorporated the arts and music. And then fast forward to a council meeting where Councilman Al Austin put a motion forward to ask for the development of the African American Cultural Center. And Mayor Garcia approved it. The council completely got behind it. It was during Black History Month. It was a very exciting moment. And the very next day, I went into the city manager's office, who was my boss at the time, and said, Mr. City Manager, I would like to work on the African American Cultural Center. And he was like, you would? I said, yes, I would. And I would like to ask our deputy city manager, the highest ranking African American in the city, to be my co-partner, because I had already done a lot of community engagement in the city. When I worked at King Park 16 years ago, I was a young Latina in the neighborhood, and a lot of the African-American elders from the community took me under their wing. And they really treated me like family. They watched me grow up. Errol Parker, D. Andrews, Mr. Richardson. I mean, there was like a whole group of elder African-Americans that raised me in how to develop community, how to build good relationships. And I grew up in a mostly Black neighborhood, so it felt like home. And then also the elder Latinos as well. And so the city manager, I think, was relieved that somebody actually wanted the project. And he said yes. And he goes, well, I think you should go talk to Kevin Jackson, the deputy city manager. And I knocked on the door and I was like, Kevin, do you have a minute? I need to ask you a question. He goes, yeah. And so I walk in and I was like, well, and his office overlooked the city. It was pretty like a cool moment on the old city hall overlooking the city. And I said, well, I just asked the city manager if, I told him the whole story, and he's like, and I was like, and I would like to know if we could do it together as a team. And his jaw dropped. He said, Tracy, when I was at that council meeting last night, I was like, how can I get involved in this? I said, well, I know you're new to the city. I've been here for many years. I feel like if we could collaborate, I will be your right hand. You should be the face. You're the highest ranking African-American. They need to see your leadership. But I will be your right-hand woman and we'll get in sync and we'll do this side by side. So me and him and a couple of the management assistants and innovation team members collaborated and we developed a work plan. We got a wonderful consultant and a lead consultant, Tasha Hunter. And we also partnered with Lord Cultural Resources. The mayor invited a steering committee, which Griselda was like, I think we were the two Latinas in the room, to be honest with you, but I was like, I have Griselda in the room. This is awesome. Right? Because we're debunking the myth that the Latino community doesn't want to work with the African-American. We're debunking that myth by saying, no, we have a seat at the table, not because we want to run the world, but because Griselda's the Arts Council executive director, we need her at the table. And me as the deputy city manager's right hand chief innovation officer working in tandem. But you better believe I gave honor where honor was due. Kevin ran the meetings, Errol Parker and Maxine, what's Max's last name? I just lost it.
Veltz.
Yeah, Max Velt, sorry, they ran the meetings and I was there behind the scenes helping them work on agendas, note-taking, whatever they needed to feel supported. And that was like one of my most passionate, beautiful experiences. And it was all around the, a cultural center, music, arts, drumming, how health, economic development. So that 12-month process of getting the community input, they wanted more than a cultural center. They wanted a resource center, a cultural center, a place where they could celebrate and enjoy. And so now the cultural center is open at the Expo Arts Center on Atlantic Avenue. They have events. They have a big Black history exhibit, but they have events throughout the year. They have African and West African dance and drum on Thursdays and Fridays. So check out their Instagram. But that, again, as a Latina, it was my honor to work side by side with them quietly, because I was not on center stage. I was quietly supporting them to get us to the finish line on that very important cultural center.
Yes, it was very important work. And I think this is also where the synergy of community organizations and the city, this is an example of how it works, right? So as an arts council, Tasha Hunter was on our board and board president for 3 years. And we worked with the council office with council member Austin for 2 years prior to this work, right? To get the word out, talk to people, host conversations, see where it is, advocate. And then it was really amazing to demonstrate that, there's community who want this. Let's bring, community wants this. What is it going to take? Right. And so I think the years ahead the years before, the years that happened during that moment of the committee and the years ahead, I think often people think community engagement, radical inclusion, transformation can be maybe 6 months, but it's a long process.
Yeah.
There's a lot of patience involved in it,
Yes.
right? And I hear that even though, you know, we talk about innovation and the city doing this, and, you know, you now work for Bloomberg, it takes time to build these innovative strategies. But, you know, the center is successful. It's doing a really, really awesome work. Yes, thank you for the link, Mola. I appreciate it. Yes, definitely follow them. Mola also collaborates with the African American Cultural Center during February and other times of the year for our Afro Latinx series. So yeah, that's the kind of work. That's the kind of work that you do, that we do. And sometimes people don't know how it all comes about. Like, how did this happen? A lot of talking, a lot of breaking bread, a lot of risks, a lot of open dialogue. Right. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes. We have one of the panelists from the Afro Latinx series.
Yay.
Yes, you were on one of the panels. Welcome. Yeah, it really takes time. And now that model that you helped steward, because like I want to respect, they're saying, you know, you step back and let people do their work, but there was some stewarding there, you know, is happening with the Latino Cultural Center and the Cambodian American Cultural Center. So there is a lot of impact. There's a lot of impact there for sure.
Can I share? Do you mind if I share a little bit about the Latino and the Cambodian?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So after we did the African American Cultural Center, some Latino leaders pulled me aside and was like, hey, you helped lead the African American Cultural Center. What about the Latino Cultural Center? You're Latina. And I was like, well, do you tell the council to put it on their agenda and I will lead it? And they're like, okay. So they did. They talked to their council members, and within a year, the Councilwoman Lena Gonzalez, who's now our state senator, put it on the agenda and requested the creation of a Latino Cultural Center. And then the pandemic hit and it kind of got shelved for a while. And I went to my friend, Sergio Ramirez, who was the Deputy Director of Economic Development at the time, another Mayor Garcia hire. And now he's the Anaheim Economic Development Director, for the record. But at the time we were working together, and I walked over to his office and I knocked on his door and I said, hey, I know the pandemic had us busy. It was about a year. Yeah, about a year, you know, had gone by. And I said, listen, now that we've done a lot of, and we could talk about what happened during COVID at another conversation. We did a lot of amazing, I love our city team. We did so much good work. I said, hey, now that things have calmed down a little, what if you and I co-lead the development of the Latino Cultural Center? And he was like, what? I go, think about it. We're two of the highest ranking Latinos in the city. You're in economic development where all the money is. I work for the city manager. I think we would make a pretty amazing team. And he's like, are you kidding me? Yes, let's do it. So he sits on a museum, the Latino Museum in Anaheim. So he had helped develop that previously in a previous job. And so he was like, I'm all in. I said, okay. So I went to the city manager and I said, hey, so Councilwoman Lena Gonzalez, who's now a state senator, requested this. The funding's still sitting there. The initiative is still there. And Sergio and I would like to lead it. And he said, okay. So here's the thing. You asked me earlier about voice. We may be scared to ask for something because we're like, well, what if my boss tells me no? Well, we kind of got to get thick skin, because if he told me no, I'd be like, well, that's a bummer. But remember, city manager, I want to run it. Like, don't forget. But he didn't. He said, okay. And my feeling is 9 times out of 10, if you're strong enough to ask, more than likely they're going to say yes, because guess what? It was sitting there as a project that needed to be completed, and they needed someone So I volunteered us. So Sergio and I lead it. We worked with the mayor to create a guest list, which of course, Griselda, one of the highest ranking Latinas in the city, running the, executive director of the Arts Council, and all of our amazing Latino leaders, Chief Luna, Chief Espino, Mike Munoz, the president of Long Beach City College. We had, oh my gosh, Jay Camarino, the assistant superintendent of Long Beach Unified School District, Mario Cordero, the port director, Ron Arias, the first health director, who's now retired. I mean, the list goes on. Every council member, every member of Congress in our area, like we, state senator, state assembly, like we stacked the deck with the who's who and the what's what of the Latino Cultural Center. And on Zoom for 12 months, even though we wanted to meet in person, but the pandemic kind of kept tampering it, didn't matter. We were on Zoom for 12 months, once a month. We did our planning meetings. We had an agenda. We had a team. Central Child was our cultural engagement. They did Zoom and then eventually in-person community engagement for 6 months. Lord Cultural Center was our cultural consultant again. And we developed the Latino Cultural Center plan, and we delivered that Hispanic Heritage Month, October of 2021 to council after a year of very hard work. And I remember sitting at the council dais, and I was like, in my mind, I go, in my heart, this is my gift to the city of Long Beach. And we presented the final findings of the Latino Cultural Center to council.
Yes, and there was a launch in August.
Yeah, they had the big launch in August. They asked me to come. I don't work for the city anymore, but they asked me to come back and MC. And we had Peruvian dancers, we had Aztec dancers, we had Ballet Folklorico, comida, like it was beautiful. At Cesar Chavez Park is the location of the cultural center, and you can also follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and then I'm just going to close with this, Griselda, because you and I could talk forever. Then the Cambodian community said, Tracy, you help the African-American. You guys, this is real. Like, this is how, because people know my heart and they also know me as a human. So they're like, you help the African-American Cultural Center. You help the Latino culture. We know you're Latina. Thank you very much for doing that. But we, the Cambodian leaders, we need a Cambodian American Cultural Center. And I said, if you get the council to put it on the agenda, I will help. And so then I said, I won't lead it because we need one of the highest ranking Cambodians in the city to lead it, but I will help quietly behind the scenes. So long story short, they did it. And then Councilwoman Suli Saro put it on council. It is now, they're in their planning process. And I'm having serious FOMO. There's a city attorney, the first Cambodian American woman deputy city attorney. She's phenomenal. She's leading it with Susanna Sneam from United Cambodian Cultural Center and all the Cambodian elders that I met 16 years ago doing community organizing. And so I'm having so much FOMO that I sit on the Miller Foundation board, and I asked our board to help fund the youth engagement part of the work. And they said yes. And so
Wonderful.
So my FOMO got fulfilled, and I was a woman of my word, and I'm still supporting the Cambodian American Cultural Center.
Yes, and I was invited to participate. My first meeting is tomorrow night.
Yay! So you're on that committee too. Yes. So our destinies are intertwined. This is just proof of that.
Yes, yes. And I saw one of the comments, it is Native American Heritage Month. Yes, it is. And we need a center too. There's been many years of advocacy for that. There's been many years of advocacy. And I agree. I think there are many Indigenous colleagues here in Long Beach, and we have the Sacred Sites, and we have the American Indian Studies program at Long Beach State, and a lot of my colleagues there have been advocating, and that's going to take more work, right? Innovation, cultivation. Yes, cultivation is innovation. So we need to cultivate that idea. Thank you for putting it out there, Annette. Thank you. Yes. So the city did have a some ceremony and some appreciation and acknowledgement of the month at the beginning of November. And there's a lot work to do there. But if you want to help, I think reaching out to the American Indian Studies department at Long Beach State is a good place for sure. So this one moment of like, I want to help has become a chain reaction. And just waiting, I think communities are ready for these reactions, this catalyst, like one starts, then another starts, and then another starts. And that's quite beautiful to see that work is intersectional, both with municipal action and community action. And I think you represent that very well, Tracy. We're getting ready to get questions from the audience, so please use the Q&A as we move forward. But I have one last question for you here. As we move forward in your work and see all the great things you're going to do at Bloomberg, and you're right now in Guatemala, what are your initiatives right now, both locally and globally? How does your work look now?
So I'm going to speak about what I'm doing in Guatemala. I have a wonderful portfolio of work, and serendipitously, a delegation of Guatemala came to Long Beach about a year ago, and they heard about Safe Long Beach and literally came up to me right after the councilman and USAID and said, we want you to come to Guatemala and train us. So I went in April. And I came here in April and I did training with the mayor and the council and the top decision makers. They call them auxiliary mayors of the various neighborhoods in Guatemala. They're called zones here. We would probably call them zip codes. And then here they call them zones. And then this time I'm back to do training on how to develop a violence prevention plan. So if I could screen share, and Griselda, I promise I won't take too long. But I will screen share some photos. Griselda was like, get the photos ready. So on Monday, we started the training with over 100 city staff, where I trained them on the Safe Long Beach Violence Prevention Plan and how we worked for 18 months to develop a violence prevention plan. I taught them about asset-based community development, which is part of the one of the classes I teach, community practice at Cal State Long Beach, and then the Justice Lab, how we launched the Justice Lab to help people in Long Beach break the cycle of incarceration. And so that was day one, and that's in their training facility for the city, and you can see all the wonderful city employees. And I'm just going to zip through some of these because they're all sequenced, but this is Richard Ramos. He was doing a training in the same building on parents on a mission on how to become really great parents, especially for gang-involved families. This is our USA delegation. And so essentially from that point then, after the full training, then these are all my new amigos and amigas. Then we did a resource mapping. So for Zone 18 is the most highest crime zone in the city. So it would be similar to 90805 or 90806 in Long Beach. So one of our first activities was to map all of the community resources in Zone 18. Our second activity then was to develop a city team, who was going to be on the city team to meet monthly to plan and organize, and then a community committee, an advisory board to help advise the development. Oh, that's the bracelet I wore. Okay, you get to see, those are videos. Okay, so then after that was day two, here's my new friends in Guatemala City. These are all city employees. Okay, I'm gonna zip through this. Oh, there's my Instagram post. Then the next day so here's the community committee we developed, and then we looked at the Safe Long Beach Violence Prevention Plan community survey as a model. So we had it in Spanish because of our Spanish-speaking population in Long Beach. They broke up into 4 groups, and they took 9 questions of the survey each, and they rewrote the survey to meet the needs of the community. They're going to deliver the survey in District 1 of Zone 18, which is the highest crime zone in all of Guatemala City. These are pictures of their group report outs. And then if the pictures here, then they had to select how they were going to, these are the survey results. How are they going to distribute the survey? Let me see if I can get the photos up. There's another amiga. Who's going to analyze the data of these surveys? And then today, here we go. This is the, oh, here we go. Group 1, group 2. I want you to see this. So then we chose, how are we going to distribute the surveys? What groups are we going to partner with? What events are we going to have it at? What institutions? And then today we did this really cool activity. It'll probably take me too long to get to it, but today we did this really cool activity where we learned about this. I taught them about the social determinants of health, and they had to grade their city on the various social determinants of health. And then they had to, oh, this was a presentation on some of their work. Then they had to write down their promise to the city. Here, this is what, oh, here we go. Here's the social determinants of health. They had to, each had to grade District 1. And then last but not least, what their promise was to themselves and to their team members and to the community about their commitment to reduce violence in Zone 18 in Guatemala City. Woohoo! It's been a busy
That is
few
amazing
days.
work. That is amazing.
It's been a busy
Questions
few
have already
days.
started. Yes.
right.
Okay. So here are some questions in regards to your presentation there. What language are you training in?
The training was completely in Spanish. I will be honest, I did my best to speak Spanish. And when we got to theory and more complicated concepts, I have, there's a translator that I work with. He has his criminal justice PhD who helps me translate like the theoretical, like social determinants of health and that kind of thing.
Okay. And then is this service available? Is this practice available for Pakistani communities at an international level?
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh,
This is from Juania.
yes, yes. I stood in that room today and I almost cried because I said, when my team and I delivered this work in Long Beach, I never in a million years thought I was going to be training another city. I was doing it because I love my city, Long Beach. So today, as I stood in the room and we trained Guatemala City, USAID said, we have a lot of other cities that need your help. Can you do more trainings? Yes, with the right interpreters. Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So because, I am who I am, are any of the prevention strategies culturally based?
Yes. So everyone in the room were city employees. I see that question. Everybody in the room were city employees. Okay. However, on the resource development list, there was a whole category of cultural resources. They have all kinds of stuff, murals, basket making. They do all kinds of stuff. And Griselda, I'll be happy to share these notes with you so you can see the cultural resources that they're doing in Zone 18. Mm-hmm.
People are making so many comments there. I'm sure you can see, Tracy, people are glad to see this work, knowing that it could be at other places in the world. That's good to hear. Really wonderful to see social determinations of health lingo directly in our community and from our community folks. Yes, that's true. Oh, this is wonderful. All right, so let's get to some other questions. Any other questions people may have? Tracy, this has been wonderful. You're right. We can talk all night. I don't know if it'll be fun for everyone to see us talk all night, but we would have fun. Let's see. Any other questions from the group? Okay. Are there additional policies protecting Indigenous populations? Ooh, good question.
Yeah, you're speaking in my heart language. Okay. So when I came to Bloomberg, one of the first things I realized is we don't fund Indigenous communities. And so there's several cities that we fund, Shawnee, Oklahoma, Salt Lake, and Duluth, Minnesota, that have Indigenous Native American communities in the neighborhood and or adjacent. And so that's one thing that I've been asking my leadership is how can we intentionally fund Indigenous communities to develop their own models of change not that we're telling them, but we give them the funding to develop their model. And I mentioned this to Carlos Sobranis, who's the first district councilman here in Guatemala. Back in August, they came to Long Beach and I was sharing my heart with him. And he said, Tracy, 20% of our population in Guatemala City are indigenous from the highlands. And I feel embarrassed that we have not done a good job of serving them. You're making me want to go back and create like programs that are responsive to the indigenous community. That community survey, they even talked about how can they translate it into, there's over 30 indigenous languages spoken in Guatemala and in those neighborhoods. And so how can they get the survey either translated or verbally interpret while they take the survey question? So I really believe this conversation about indigenous communities is we're seeing early horizons of not only Guatemala City, but even cities in the US who want to honor, invest, and support and uplift indigenous communities.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Do you know about the Association of Indigenous Archives, Libraries, and Museums?
I would like to learn about that.
Yeah, they do a lot of
I
this
would like
as well, because there's not a lot of associations or groups that do this at a wide level. And here in the United States, this is one of them. There's a lot of intersections in that organization, but we can talk about that separately. Okay,
Yes.
Some great questions. I feel like I don't know if you follow Gustavo Arellano, but he takes questions every Tuesday night on Insta. I feel a little bit like him. What is the main objectives of safe zones in Long Beach for the 9805, the 9806? Creating safe spaces or change in the zip codes?
So right now, the focus is on the city launched the youth development plan, and they're specifically doing youth engagement around youth leadership training, youth job development. That is the focus in 90805, 906. There's more than just that. I do want to say, and it's interesting you're asking me this question, because when I was in charge of the plan, we partnered with the Ministers Alliance and the community in 90805 to do night walks on Tuesday night, the night of the week that was the most shootings, to reduce crime over time. And in 90806, we developed the community peace garden and several safe passages to and from school. There's so many different programs. But right now, Ana Lopez is the city's violence prevention coordinator. It's ran out of the health department, and they have a website. I believe it's lbvpp.com, Long Beach Violence Prevention Plan.com, where you can get looped into the work that they're doing.
All right, thank you.
Legacy.
That question was from Annette. What do you envision as the next? What do you envision the next major barrier that needs to be worked on for progress in the community? Is both regional.
Oh, wow. I've been asking the hard questions.
Yes.
In the US, this is so interesting you asked this question. In the US, I was just having this conversation yesterday. We can be a little entitled. Let's be real. And that could be good or bad. It depends on how you look at it. But if we say we want affordable housing in a specific neighborhood, we have the yes, affordable housing. And then we have the NIMBYs. No, not in my backyard. No affordable housing, right? And so I think in the US, our charge right now is for public employees to have what I call grit and grace. Like the grit to have these really challenging conversations, but the grace to not take it personal, that people aren't dissing me as a human, but these are complicated problems we're trying to solve. So grit and grace. What I'm seeing in Latin America, and this is early visions, I don't know, I can verify this over the years as I continue to work with Latin American cities, is there's a lot of humility here, and people want to learn, they want to be a part of the change, and government has been more of a passive role. And so now, like Guatemala City, the Mayor Quiñones is amazing. Follow him on Instagram and Facebook. He is pushing innovation. He's doing a lot of stuff Mayor Garcia did for Long Beach. Innovation, smart cities, violence prevention, economic development, programs specifically for reducing violence with women and girls. And so in Latin America, community engagement looks very different. And then I told my boss tonight, I was like, I eventually would like us to do community engagement work in Africa, in various countries in Africa. I actually think probably the biggest challenge is we can't go into a country and say, oh, I know civic engagement, let me teach you. Because even during these last 3 days of training, they taught me a lot. They go, Tracy, that sounds good in English, but in Spanish, you say it this way. That's a good idea, but in Guatemala, we would never ask that question, or we would never do it that way. Can we do it this way? And I'm like, yes, adapt what we learned, adapt it to your community in your city. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, is civic engagement has to adapt to the people that you're engaging.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm going to, thank you so much, everybody. We're going to take with us tonight, cultivation is innovation. We're going to take with us tonight, grit and grace. And we're going to also take that community engagement is adaptable, right? Adaptable to the needs of the community. That's great. Thank you so much, Tracy. Muchas gracias por esta noche. Allison, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I just want to extend a thank you so much to Tracy for being here, and for Griselda for leading questions. You two are absolutely amazing. You're just sitting here behind the screens going, wow, wow. And I know we had a lot of comments from audience. So I just want to thank you to everyone in our audience tonight. Again, another shout out to CSULB students for joining us too. If you want to see more sessions like this, MOLA hosts GRIT along with Griselda Suarez and the Arts Council. So you can check out mola.org/events for any of that. If you have any follow-up questions or things that you'd like to send to us, feel free to email us, and we'll pass those along to our guest speaker. Again, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. You two are amazing. We feel inspired. I can't wait to do this again. And I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Thank you again.